we're jumping right in today, Rabbi. Where should we go first? Which text do you want to look at?
Let's look at Fisher, since you all studied Fisher a bit yesterday.
Okay, got it.
What we're going to do is we're going to finish Psalm 19 studying today and tomorrow, and then on Monday start with offerings. So Harold and Annika will go over the details of that. But let's remember from when we looked at Levi in the Hebrew, the role of speech and expression. Speech, not necessarily literal human speech, because we see in this first section the speech of the heavens. In other words, the way that the heavens communicate with us. Oh, here come the. And I would argue in some ways, now Fisher is a little different, as people have pointed out, that the kind of specificity of the Torah disappears. But still what Fisher's maintains, which I want to look at this arc here, and Fisher will we'll go through Fisher, is that the beginning section is about the communication, how we experience the Holy's presence in nature, how the natural world communicates holiness to us. I'm going to kind of simplify this. So the first section, I would argue, in the original Psalm, and I think Fisher does this as well, is how the natural world communicates holiness to us. The second section is how God communicates holiness to us, and in the original, that's through Torah. And the final section, which I would argue could even be, even if we just saw it, line 15, is how the human expresses holiness. So in some ways it goes from the natural world somehow to God, whatever we imagine God to be, and then finally to human. So the first one is God is being embedded in nature. The second is God speaking to us through a revelation, and the third is humanity's speaking to us. Okay, so let's look at Fisher, and we're at 19.
You can see the screen, correct, Rabbi?
It's a little small for me.
Right, I will.
I see the whole thing, but it's a little small.
Here's a little bigger.
Okay, so can I have somebody read the first paragraph? You'll see how he breaks it up. We're going to look at Fisher's.
Ira has volunteered.
Ira, would you just read the first, not the whole thing, because I want to stop there. And again, there are no numbers. We see again, Fisher rejects the Mizmor.
The heavens express your fire. The night sky is the work of your hands. Day after day is your spoken language. Night after night, your perfect knowing. There is no speech. There are no words. Their voice falls silent, yet the music plays everywhere. To the end of the earth, its clear notes float out. To the end of the worlds, the words pronounced become a tabernacle for the sun that comes out like a bridegroom from his chamber, a robust runner to run his day's course. To the end of the heavens he races, and back again he returns, and there is nothing hidden from his heat.
So we see exactly this deep expression of whoops. Folks, you got to mute yourselves. Sorry. Thank you for that, Ira. And let's have somebody else read the next paragraph or the next stanza. It's not really a paragraph.
Waiting for a hand. Who wants to read it's just English? Someone can do this.
Just English.
Dean Dresser. And then Sarah, and then Barbara as we go on.
Okay, great.
Your pattern is perfection. It quiets the soul that knows it, and its elegant expression makes everything clear so that even the simple are wise.
So you see how the difference between the first stanza, which is reflects honestly, and I think unusually for Fisher perhaps, or maybe not, pretty close to the original. Obviously he plays with patterns of language, but he really captures, I think, the beginning. And here, instead of Torah, instead of referring to the specific Torah, remember I said Torah could also mean teachings. So he's talking about the teachings that are found in the pattern I would say, I read your pattern is perfection, is the pattern of nature, is the pattern of the natural world. So he's just taking the specificity of the word Torah and using the universal use of the word Torah, which is about teaching in general, which I think is very creative and interesting to me. It's very interesting to me. Okay, the third stanza.
Barbara Grindell.
Thank you. Your ways are upright, making the heart glad. Your distances are clear, washing out the eyes. Your awesomeness is pure and endures constantly. What you require is just, for it is nothing but the truth, and it is more durable than the finest gold, sweeter than the drippings of the honeycomb. Who serves you is inspired, and in following you finds reward.
Great. So again, so these two verses, again, I think Fisher does a fantastic job with reflecting in his way, which is removing the particulars of what it would sound like to be Jewish or biblical, but going to the essence of where God's found in nature and using the language that we saw in the original, right? About we see purity and enduring, meaning from the from faith and continual truth, just, finer than gold, sweeter than honey. So you see the reflection of the original. I think he does a really beautiful job with this. Okay, the next paragraph, stanza.
Who had their hand up next? Someone, Alice.
Sorry. Who is free from all error? You take hold of it and turn it right. And where there is confusion, let me not become entangled, and I will be blameless, clear of any misdirection.
Had this stanza not been here, in some ways, this psalm would be very similar to Psalm 1, right? The kind of a wisdom psalm. This is what a good person does. We've seen that before, right? Truth, just, direct, mima, pure. But what this psalm does is in some ways goes the next level, which is what a lot of you brought up way back when we talked about Psalm 1, which is, how can we be that good? We're not that good. Let's, that's aspirational, but what does it mean for those of us who couldn't possibly live up to this? This psalm is kind of Psalm 1 matured, or Psalm 1 plus, or Psalm 1 going to the next level. It's describing all of the things that we know increases holiness in the world, rejecting all the things that decreases holiness in the world. But then it says, but guess what? Who's free from error? None of us. It brings into this psalm exactly what so many of you said was missing in Psalm 1. Okay, so all of us make mistakes. You, the one who is the source of the universe, will take hold of it, our errors, my personal failings. You will help turn it right. And where there is confusion, let me not become entangled. Understanding life isn't so clear and crystal as that stanza before. I will be blameless, clear of any misdirection. That's my hope, but I know only with your help. Okay, final stanza.
Alice, do you want to keep on reading? It's just those four lines.
The 15.
Oh, okay. May these words of my mouth and these meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, my rock, my release.
So the psalmist is kind of going through the first part is the heavens and being aware of the natural power of the world to inspire, to teach, to instruct. The second part is saying, okay, I know all the things that need to be done in the world to be just and right and pure. And then, you know what, but I'm a human being. I'm not an angel. I'm not God. I'm not the natural world even. And then it ends with an incredibly powerful prayer, which ends the Amidah. Every time we say the Amidah, may these words, the words that express the beauty of the natural world, the world that express my understanding that our goal is to increase holiness in the world, the words that say, you know what, I'm not perfect, but you're going to help me. May these words of my mouth and these meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, my rock and my release. Maybe we'll get Cantor Nemi tomorrow or a class next week to offer some of the very profound, very musical variations of that. All right, let's look at Mitchell if we may, Harold.
You got it.
Psalm 19 is a very popular psalm to study and to think about precisely because of these elements. For those of you, I've pointed out there are a couple of books about Psalms. Sarna's book about Psalms has a chapter about Psalm 19. Edward Feld, who's a contemporary poet and scholar who has a beautiful book called Joy, Despair, and Hope, reading Psalms, has a chapter about Psalm 19. And now we're going to look at Mitchell. If I can find my Mitchell.
All right, here we are.
And remember again, Mitchell is a poet. All right.
Okay, if I could have a few, Linda Solomon raised her hand.
Stephen Mitchell is a poet, and this is his Psalm 19. And again, Stephen Mitchell, like Fisher and like Bernstein, is not like Levy and Alter are kind of in one category. They're really trying to stay somewhat close to the Hebrew and struggle through the Hebrew. These folks are writing Psalms for themselves and are using it as the jumping off point. Okay, so shall we have a reader?
We have Linda, then Aura, then Sarah, then Judith.
Okay, so
Linda
stanza,
first.
just, yep, to the breaks, we'll do this. It's
The
interesting to
heaven-
see where each of them breaks up the stanzas.
Okay. The heavens declare God's grandeur and the radiance from which they arise. Each dawn tells of his beauty. Each night shines with his grace. Their testimony speaks to the whole world and reaches to the ends of the earth. In them is a path for the sun, who steps forth handsome as a bridegroom and rejoices like an athlete as he runs. He starts at one end of the heavens and circles to the other end, and nothing can hide from his heat.
Great, somebody else read the next stanza?
Okay. I think we had Aura.
God's universe is perfect, awing the mind. God's truth is subtle, baffling the intellect. God's law is total, quickening the breath.
I think you continue.
Yeah.
God's compassion is fathomless, refreshing the soul. God's justice is absolute, lighting up the eyes. God's love is radiant, rejoicing the heart. More precious than fine gold, sweeter than honey from the, I can't see,
Comb.
from the comb.
Great. Okay, somebody else read the final stanza, the next stanza.
I think we had Sarah Sloan.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Oops.
Help me to be aware of my selfishness, but without undue shame or self-judgment. Let me know that you are always present in every atom of my life. Let me keep surrendering myself until I am utterly transparent. Let my words be rooted in honesty and my thoughts be lost in your light. Unnameable God, my essence, my origin, my lifeblood, my home.
All right, so let's look at, so we've now looked at Fisher, so keep that in mind or keep it open in front of you. So what do you notice about Mitchell? What's your response to Mitchell? Let's see what folks, let's have some comments. If people notice, what do you see about Mitchell? Noticing always the first thing. Does the author or translator or commentator keep to the verse numbers of the original Psalm? No, you don't see any verse numbers. Doesn't use the Mizmor LeDavid or Lamanatseach or any of that. So those are always the first things to notice. So tell me, what else do you see in Mitchell? What do you like? What do you not like? What do you notice what he's doing with these 4, or maybe we could call them 3 stanzas?
Gail Malka Meister has her hand up.
So it looks to me like he's, instead of saying that the Torah makes wise the simple, he seems to be saying the opposite. It's unfathomable. Did I get that right in this song? In his treatment?
Where do you see that? How do you see that? I don't see that exactly.
Oh, where was it? Baffling the intellect. God's truth is subtle, baffling the intellect.
I see what you mean, that it's just, I wouldn't say that, that's interesting. I think it's just saying that it's beyond, it's not just a human experience that's so deep. But you do notice that what he has here with these 3 sections is what I talked about, the first being the natural world, so to speak, 2 being God's teachings, whether or not the author, commentator, interpreter sees it as Torah, and the 3rd is human. So it goes from natural world, God, human.
I noticed that God's grandeur in the first line is the title of a poem by Gerard Manley Hopkins, which does not seem to be taken from this psalm.
Really?
It is a very famous poem about the grandeur of God.
Wow, interesting. I don't know it.
Yes, Sherry or Simon?
Yeah, it seems like he's keeping the biblical parallelism a lot.
Yes,
He uses it in almost every line.
yes.
It's just a technical thing, but he's using that
Yeah,
part
as a
of it.
poet, he's using that form for his poetry. And you notice, unlike Fisher, he uses masculine references to God, which Fisher does not do. Fisher in this psalm, if you can have the Fisher in front of you, Fisher rejects, doesn't talk about God as he.
That's right.
Yeah.
Other thing I would say about Fisher is at the very end of Fisher, he says, "My rock, my release," rather than "my redemption."
Yeah.
And as a Buddhist, the object, or one of the objects of Buddhism, is to be released from the cycle of reincarnation. That gets you to where you want to be. I think it's an important distinction.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Everybody else seems to use redemption.
Yep. Yeah, Goel is usually, I think it's very creative on Fisher's part.
Lisa Brown?
So this last part of the psalm in Mitchell is really a petition. I mean, it seems that he's changed.
Prayer. Yep.
He's really made this a petition. I mean, you can almost see this being part of the Amidah, the way he's worded it here, more so than in the other translations.
And people will often talk about how that final the verse of the psalm is prayer, and it is in fact used in our prayer, right? It is that final verse of that is so famous. It does. He and Mitchell does really I say the entire book of Psalms is really a book of prayer, but this really is prayer. You really feel it very directly. Thanks.
Michael Goldstein?
Yeah, just following up on that, the last of both the Mitchell and the Fisher say, may these words and let my words. It's like he's hoping, he's wishing. The poet is expressing there a wish fulfillment. In other words, it's his belief, it's his faith that's being expressed. He has the faith that what he's doing is correct.
Beautiful.
Alicia Fowler?
Yeah, I really love, and I can't really find it in the original or in the other translations, this line of, "Let me know you are always present in every atom of my life."
Yeah.
Really, I just think is a lovely idea, a different way of getting at the transparent to oneself.
Yes. I muted myself. Yeah, I agree. I think it's beautiful, and I think it's getting to the underlying meaning, even if the words aren't there. I think he's trying to, which is what I encourage everybody to do. It's not necessarily the exact words here. It's what are these words trying to express that you might have different words to get to the deeper meaning. Thank you.
Cantor Nimi had a grammatical note about Yehiyu Liratzon, and we can also ask him if he can give us some musical versions later on. Cantor?
Hello. Sorry, I realize I'm off video.
Lovely to hear your voice.
So yes, the I believe I might be terming it correctly, but just if that where it's imperfect, but it has a bit of an imperatival tone to it. It's not just like it will happen, but may it happen. is really, really common in psalm language and prayer language, where you to translate the imperfect as having a kind of almost imperatival voice to it.
Totally agree.
And then the other thing I was just going to say about the word release, that I remember because I was talking with, I think, was it Alicia yesterday, that it feels a little bit less accusatory in the Fisher toward the psalmist. Redemption almost implies that like the person may have done something wrong from which they need to be for which they need to be redeemed, whereas release implies that there's something that's been set upon them, some kind of narrowness that's been imposed upon them from which they need to be released.
Very nice.
Very Fisher.
It's very Fisher. See, I love you're getting to get that voice and hear what they do with it.
Ira.
Yes, so picking up on that theme, that the word release also struck me yesterday and today. I had a slightly different take on it. Simon mentioned release from samsara and the cycle of suffering and incarnations, but I also think of release in the Buddhist sense as breathing in and breathing out, and the out breath, the out breath is the release and the letting go. And so I read it from that point of view. And obviously we don't know what Fisher was meaning exactly, or whether he was bringing his Buddhist sensibility to that word. He probably was, but it's interesting to hear all of these different interpretations of what we think his intention was.
And ultimately, we write our own on top of these, right? So it could mean that to us, regardless of what his intention was.
Right.
We're not originalists here. It's fun to try and think about what an author was intending, but it's as authoritative to say, what does the reader take from something, right? So that's what's fun. It's really fun. I love it. It's really, I think it's valuable to say, oh, what did the author intend? But it doesn't stop there. Art doesn't stop with what the artist intended. Art is about what the reader or the perceiver takes away.
Yes.
Barbara Grindell.
Before I start, I just want to, I need the words, Leaving.
Oh,
that was up. I have a copy of Leaving. I was going to say that we're expecting a phone call from Cheryl's doctor, so I'm going to have to leave as soon as he calls.
Okay.
And Cheryl feels terrible she thinks she's spoiling my birthday, but she could never spoil my birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
So, thank you. Okay. He's calling right now. I have to go.
Okay, goodbye.
Okay. Monica Raymond.
Thanks.
Monica? Monica, are you there?
You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Monica.
Thank you. It seems like Levy leaves off the coda, the amazing coda about may this be acceptable in your sight.
I know, I agree with you. That's the one thing I was kind of surprised too, because I mean, he has I think he's trying to do that with that, let my words be rooted in honesty and my thoughts be lost in your light, unnameable God, my essence, my origin, my lifeblood, my home. I think that's where he is coming from, but I agree, I miss it. I really love that final verse.
It seems like he's taking for granted more that that these things that he's saying will be okay. He's more merged with God in the stanza.
Good. Very interesting.
Linda Solomon?
Yes, I'm glad that Monica brought that up, because this is the verse that I just wanted to talk to also. I really love what he did with it, even though I absolutely love the original. I love the fact that he says, unnameable God, my essence, my origin, my lifeblood, my home. That to me sums up the way I believe in my God.
Uh-huh.
So it's very
Good.
meaningful to me.
Beautiful. Do you have the Mitchell book, Linda?
Yes, I do.
Good, good. So that's wonderful. It's really wonderful to read through if this speaks to you. I think he does.
Yes, he
Wonderful.
does.
Lori Spear.
The word that is often translated from Hebrew into English as redemption, did that originally have to do with the redemption of people captured in war?
It's the same word, but it can be used. The word is geula, which means is the noun form for redemption, or goel. We have the blessing for redemption. It can be used all different kinds of ways. So we use it to redeem all different kinds of things. In the Friday night service, it's the blessing for kind of, which refers to the redemption from Egypt. So it gets used a lot, but that's a great question, because what we would have to do if we were taking this really slowly and biblical Hebrew wise, we would take the word for redemption and look at all the different ways it gets used. But as I will say over and over again, we can never know exactly what an ancient word meant. The best we could do is see other ways it's used, but we don't ultimately know if being used in a certain way had an idiomatic meaning that is lost to us. That's the challenge of ancient languages, always. And how goel gets used today only gives us X amount of information, because that doesn't, it's not, as we've seen, an Israeli modern Hebrew speaker might use a word that sounds exactly like the biblical word, but use it in a way that the biblical writer would not have imagined. But that's why it's fun to play with it, because we can't totally know. We could look at how it's used, but yes, it does get used for historical. It gets used for redeeming prisoners, for redeeming captives. So it definitely has a feeling of being taken out from some kind of oppression and moving towards some kind of freedom.
Lori Krotman.
And if other Hebrew speakers or knowledgeable folks have things to add to anything I say or to correct me, please do.
Just to follow on what Ira and Alicia said, I love that he says about the selfishness, but not be filled with shame and self-judgment, because I think that's what we do so often. We're aware, oh my God, every day, every minute, sometimes we do something selfish, and then we flagellate ourselves because we feel so bad for what we did, and then it undoes the self-awareness that you've just gained. It's almost like it's selfish to be in shame.
Well, I had a teacher once of rabbinic thought who talked a lot about the role of religion traditionally and classically has been to relieve guilt, right? What a deeply religious person can do is, you do something bad, there are ways you can respond to it. The problem of a postmodern person who is not bound by religious systems is that we don't have, if you don't kind of believe the system, so to speak, you don't have ways you can be relieved from the guilt of having done something bad, except to psychologically torture ourselves. So he argued, and it was very interesting, that a lot of the role that religion can play is the sense of, okay, you've done something bad, here are the things and ways to do to respond. It's very interesting, but yes, it's a very real thing to allow this stuff to shrink, to crush us.
Randy Axelrod.
My favorite lines of all the translations is Fisher, when he talks about how there's no speech and there's no words, but the music plays everywhere. And how many times have you seen videos of like Jews and Palestinians getting together and relating through song, through music? So I think that's a universal thing, and I think it's very beautiful.
Yeah, music is powerful, and we see that throughout the Psalms, right? The power of music, of shir, of Mizmor itself, the Zion Memresh root of Mizmor is song, and that there's deep, 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 deep power in music.
That is all of the hands for the moment.
Okay, Harold, do you have something special to play for us?
I do, as a matter of fact, Rabbi. And so just to repeat what the Rabbi said, offerings for Psalm 19 are due to Annika on Sunday night. We will share them on Monday and Tuesday. We'll send out some more information about this. And it's the first time we have new offerings for a while. That's exciting to see what our creative minds will have come up with.
And folks, Monday night, we are having a town hall for members to talk about the next stage. How are we going to reopen the building? How are we going to do it? What's happening for high holidays? So Monday night, the email will go out on Friday. Members have to register to get the link for the Monday night.
And
town hall.
by imagining our future task force, we'll be making a big
Yes.
presentation. So it should be very interesting. If you
Yes.
go to any town hall, this should be the one that you go to. All right, let's see what we have, Rabbi.
Okay, Harold, what do you have to share with us?
Oh, I thought that we would do some Jimmy Cliff, Rivers of Babylon. How about
Okay.
that? Since everybody was.
And this is a meld of a couple of Psalms.
All right, let's see how this version is.
Long before the dawning.
Everybody there? Oh,
So I think he does a brilliant, brilliant job of taking a couple of Sukkim verses from Psalm 137 by the rivers of Babylon, which is all about exile and all about being exiled and away and lost. And then to go from there into the final verse of this Psalm, but may the words of our mouth or the meditations of our soul be acceptable unto you. It's so, so beautiful. What a great example of using Psalms in a completely different tradition, in a completely different cultural expression to get at what is so deeply there. And many people have sung this setting, of course, but it's so great to hear and to see Jimmy Cliff actually doing that original setting. So Cantor Nimi, is it possible tomorrow to share some other settings for that verse?
Sure. It just so happens that I've also written one that I would be happy to share too.
Fantastic. So maybe we'll make some space tomorrow to be able to do some on that verse, okay? Maybe a couple.
And Marcia, sorry.
Adrian and Michael have things to say too.
And Marcia Melnick just asked about J Street, but J Street doesn't, our morning coffee clutch doesn't start until 11 a.m. if I'm correct.
We'll have class. I think that's right. So I think we'll have class on Monday.
Okay, Michael Goldstein and then Adrian.
I think you just answered. In other words, tomorrow we're going to listen to music on the 15th. There's nothing on the 16th, nothing on the 17th, nothing on the 18th. The Psalms are due on the 18th. And then on the 19th, we're not doing Psalms. We're just going to have, what happens on the 19th on Monday?
Yes. The class is only Monday through Thursday.
Monday through Thursday. Tomorrow we're going to do some studying and some music. It's not going to be only music. We're going to look at Bernstein and one other translation for tomorrow. And
for
then
19.
For 19. We're staying with 19 this week. And then Monday and maybe Tuesday we'll be doing the offerings for 19.
Got it. So we're not on to 20 yet.
No.
Not yet, but you can always look ahead, Michael. You know what's coming next. That's the secret of this class.
All right.
There's no such thing as too much preparation. And guess what? The next thing is Psalm 20.
Adria gets the last word.
Oh dear, I'm sorry. No, just a sidebar to the Jimmy Cliff and taking something, from one tradition and using it in another. I'm not so sure that it is to taking, because I've learned very clearly through the wonderful women who are my mother's healthcare aides, who all happen to be Jamaican, that at 6 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday, they have a Psalms class.
Wow.
With their church. And so I am comparing my study with Marie's study, and it's been a wonderful kind of just enhancement all around. Yep. And we're sharing. It's remarkable because we sit and, she talks about what she's learned that day, and I try and be as articulate as she in what, I've learned. And the sharing has been very interesting in that. So I'm going to send her this YouTube video right now.
Beautiful. That is so beautiful, Adria. What a deep cross-cultural meld to be able to, and that's really the power of Psalms multiculturally and multi-religiously. Psalms are so powerful. Christians, and I've learned about Muslims also, but I've done a lot of interfaith stuff with Christians around Psalms, because it's a great place to meet, because there's no direct issues around Jesus, even if they can be felt for them. And it's so authentically Jewish and so authentically Christian. There's really great meeting possibilities there.
No, it's great because whenever I arrive, her notes from the class are on her pad and her notebook, and her Bible is out, and it's very interesting. As you said, it's a universal. It has a universality to it that so many things do not in religion.
Yep. Wow,
that's why music is so great.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everyone. See you tomorrow.
See everybody tomorrow. Wonderful to study with you today.